In our video number 9, today we are going to learn about the consumer's budget and equilibrium. Now, from our previous knowledge of indifference curve analysis, we learned that the income of the consumer is given, and this we are calling here the budget. The income is called budget, and that the consumer consumes two goods, X and Y, and that the consumer is a rational consumer. That means he maximizes his satisfaction on the consumption of goods. Now, here the consumer will allocate his resources or income in such a way that he is able to consume both goods X as well as Y. Now, this will be given by, now how many units of X and Y he is going to consume will be given by the budget set. So, a budget set gives us all possible combination of consumption of goods X and Y. So, we can define budget set as a collection of all bundles that the consumer can buy with his income at the prevailing market prices. Let's try to understand it this way. If Px represents the price of good X and Py represents the price of good Y, Qx represents the quantity of good X and Qy represents quantity of good Y, then Px into Qx will give us the money spent on good X. The price and the quantity, when you multiply, the product gives us the money that is spent on good X. And similarly, Py, the price of good Y, into the quantity of good Y, Py into Qy, gives us the money spent on good Y. Hence, the budget equation will be given by, the budget equation, otherwise called the budget constraint, will be given by M is equal to Px into Qx here plus Py into Qy, this one. So the sum of these two goods and their prices gives us the budget. Budget is represented by M over here. Some books use B or some books even use Y, which represents income. Alright, so let us understand this better with the help of an example. Now let Px be rupees 2 per unit and the quantity that is consumed is 9 units. Then the price of Y, good Y, is rupees 3 per unit and the quantity consumed is 4 units. And we are given the income. Income is rupees 30. Then substituting the values, we get the budget equation as M is equal to Px into Qx plus Py into Qy, which implies this budget is 30 rupees. Here we write 30 is equal to price is 2 into 9 units, 2 into 9 plus for good Y, price is 3 per unit. So 3 into 4 units gives us 3 into 4 equal to 12. So this 2 into 9 is 18, 3 into 4 is 12. So when you add, you get 30. So that is what is our budget. So this is what explains how we get the budget equation when we are given price and quantity consumed. Now we are calling this a budget equation. That means that all the money or all the income is consumed, totally consumed in consumption of good X as well as good Y, right? This may not be always true. This can be that the budget will be less than or equal to this, the sum of the price and quantity consumed of good X and good Y. So this will always be budget is less than this. If the consumption is more than the budget, do you think it's possible to consume goods X and Y? No. Sorry, I think the symbol is wrong. It should be budget should always be greater than, isn't it? The money we have in our hand should always be greater than what we spend. So the different budget sets that can be formed will be given by this in equation. M is greater than or equal to pxqx plus pyqy. Or this 30 should always be greater than or equal to, we saw it was 2 per unit for good x and 3 per unit for good y. So this inequation becomes 2 into qx plus 3 into qy. We substituted the prices of good x and good y. Then the combinations would lie between 15, 0 and 0, 10. This means that if all of x alone is consumed at rupees 2 per unit, then 2 15s are 30 and we do not consume any units of good y. Now if you consume all units of good y and none of good x, then the combination would be 0 good x and good y will be 3 into quantity being 10, 3 tens are 30. So we do not consume any of x. So plotting these extreme values of x and y, we get the budget line as here is good y and here is good x. So 15 units of good x and 10 units of good y on the extremes. So this becomes 15, 0 and here we have 0, 10. So we'll join these 2 points and we get the budget line. This is called the budget line. The budget line. Now all combination of goods that are equal to the budget equation will lie on this line. If it is less than, then it will be in this feasible region. Okay, and if it exceeds the budget, the combination exceeds the budget, then it will lie in the non-feasible region. Non-feasible region. All right. So the equation of the budget will be given along this line. Less than or equal to will be given here. More than will be given on this side of the budget line. I hope that's understood. Now, since this is a straight line, we have the slope of this budget line. Now that's a straight line, so the slope will be a constant. Now what is happening over here is the prices are given to us. And so the slope will be given by a negative slope, since we need to sacrifice some of the units of good y in order to increase the consumption of good x. So it will be given by a negative slope of px by py, which is otherwise called the market rate of exchange. Or in terms of the IC, it will be called as the marginal rate of substitution. What does this mean? That we are sacrificing certain units of y in order to gain certain units of x, isn't it? So the slope of the budget line is nothing but the slope of the indifference curve or the marginal rate of substitution. Let's also understand the movement or change in the budget line. If prices are kept constant, that is the price of good x and good y do not change, then an increase in income would move the budget line to the right, or we see a rightward shift in the budget line. However, a decrease in income would shift the budget line towards the left. So that's what is represented over here. This is our normal budget line. When the income increases, we are able to buy more of x, isn't it? And more of y. So the budget line shifts to this new line. Okay. Now when the budget decreases, this is a normal budget line. When the budget decreases, we buy less of x and less of y. So our new budget line lies here. So it moves to the left. The other condition is that the income is kept constant. That means if the income does not change, but the price of good x increases or price of good x decreases, then what? If price of good x increases, we will be buying less of good x. y is kept constant because there is no change in the price of y. So the budget line will rotate inside or towards the left. So it rotates left when the price of x increases because we are able to buy less of good x. On the other hand, if the price of good x decreases, then we are able to buy more of good x. When the price falls, we buy more of good x. So in that case, this budget line rotates to the right. Rotates to the right. Okay. The next condition talks about the increase in the price of good y and decrease in the price of good y. The price of good x is kept constant. So we will be buying the same amount of x. When the price of good y increases, we buy less of good y. And hence it rotates to the left. So it rotates left when price of good y increases. And here, when price of good y decreases, then we are able to buy more of good y. So it will move up and out. So it rotates to the right, rightward or outward. All right. Now coming to the consumer equilibrium and the indifference curve. We already know the slope of the indifference curve is the same as the slope of the budget line. So MRS is equal to Px by Py is what we already learned. Now if you try to plot both the budget line as well as the indifference curves on a graph like this, I have drawn three indifference curves, one IC1, IC2 and IC3. We know a higher indifference curve gives more satisfaction. But if you look at IC1, here are 2 points that cross the budget line or intersect the budget line. So these two will be giving him the same level of satisfaction. But how about a point that is here inside the budget line but on the same indifference curve? It might give him the same amount of satisfaction, but since it is on the lower side of the budget line, this is not the equilibrium. Now let us look at IC3. IC3 is on a higher level, so it should be giving him more level of satisfaction, but it is in the non-feasible region. So we cannot consider IC3 either. Now if you look at IC2, there's only one point of contact on the budget line, where his consumption of good X lies here and his consumption of good Y lies here on this points, isn't it? So this point, where the IC2 and the budget line intersect, will be called as the equilibrium point. So a consumer attains his equilibrium at this point E, where he can consume these many units of good X and these many units of good Y for the given prices in the market, where his budget also supports the units of good X and Y. So this is the equilibrium point. Now what is to be noted over here is that the indifference curve is tangent to the budget line. Is tangent to the budget line. That means it touches only at one point on the budget line, and that the indifference curve is convex to the origin. Yes, it is convex to the origin. This is origin. It is convex to the origin. So these 2 points are very, very important. The most important point to find the equilibrium is what we must be knowing is that the slope of the IC and the slope of the budget line are the same. So this is the point where MRS is equal to Px by Py, and that is what we are calling as equilibrium. MRS is equal to Px by Py.